Hi, everyone. If you thought we were going to cover the recent Supreme Court ruling on web designers, you were right. And we are going to start out with a story that came off the AP wire that was written by Miss Carresco. And it is all about what I started out with, the Supreme Court ruling that just recently decided that a web designer in Colorado could refuse service for a gay wedding. I don't agree with it. I'm sure most of the panel here doesn't, but let's start out with Teo. What do you think, Teo? Let's get your take on it.
Oh yeah, let's start with the cartoon that has the weird opinion right away. Well, as a cartoon myself and also as an artist, I will have a different opinion in here because this is not as easy as just saying, oh yeah, this goes against the right of this person who wants to do this, or the person who doesn't want to do that, or the person asking for this. So, as an artist, I have done some drawings for people. I've been paid for them, and I know how long it takes to work on them. Designers work in a similar way. I was never successful, but I had several successful acquaintances or friends. And sometimes people would ask them to do some no safe for work commissions. If you are not familiar with them, those are very interesting thing, usually pornographic stuff. And many artists are totally okay with them, and they will be happy to do those because they are well paid and they enjoy doing those. But other artists, they decided they don't want to do that because it makes them uncomfortable. They don't want to do that. Sometimes it goes against their principles, their ideals. And art is a luxury. Art is not like being refused. Art is not the same that being refused medical care, for example, or food. You are not putting somebody in trouble. You are not taking something basic out of somebody. This is just some expensive extra thing, like, I don't know, some jewelry. So if somebody wants to avoid selling jewels to somebody, I have no idea why somebody would want that, but they are on their right because these are luxury items. The same happens with art and with design. Designers, they have to spend a lot of time doing this, doing whatever they are being asked to do. So if somebody says, you know what, I don't feel comfortable by doing this, I think that they are on their right to say that. Maybe they are being, a little. We can judge them, maybe a little bit, and we totally can say, "Oh yeah, I don't feel comfortable by buying stuff from somebody who doesn't want to work equally for everybody else." But I kind of understand why the court said, you know what, this person offers a specific service. This is going to take a lot of their time, and if this is going to stress them out, they shouldn't be forced to do that. So that's my take on this thing, and I kind of understand why the ruling was in favor of the designer. And this is totally different from the cake thing where the guy was attacking those people, doxing them, being very violent. Here it was just somebody trying to exercise a right of, not doing something that I guess their excuse was that it was going to stress them out or that it was going against what they believe. I don't know. But that's my take on this.
Helen, what do you
Yeah.
think?
I thought that the free market was going to solve this problem, because isn't that what always conservatives scream? Like, let's the free market figure it out. And I guess that didn't help in this country that's supposed to be like a melting pot, freedom, pursuit of happiness, all that jazz that we're supposed to have in this country. I'm really troubled by this as a queer person, as having queer friends and a queer child. The idea of having anyone feeling that stigma of business, rejecting you because of who you are and who you love. This reminds me of Jim Crow laws. Something you're being discriminated against is something that you can't control about yourself. And it just, gives me that vibe. And Lori Smith, who brought this case to the Supreme Court, she's a bigot. And bigots, I can accept being in the damn world. But I'm concerned that the Supreme Court is siding with bigots. By the way, she's also a liar. Now, the supposed gay person who asked her to make the wedding website does not exist and was never proven to exist. Lawyers were even suggesting that it was a troll account. And the lying bigot made it all the way to the Supreme Court and got the publicity where Christians who think queer people are icky can give her the business that she wants. I am beyond concerned and downright frightened of where this is going to go, because it is going to be a slippery slope. And the precedent that the Supreme Court is setting based on religious values, you know, having the right to refuse service to someone not being rude or not being difficult just based on who they are, you know, it's a little gross, and I'm very concerned, because who says that going down the line, like they start refusing people of color and they'll say it's against my religion to serve people of color. I can see that happening, because bigot gonna bigot. What do you think, Cara?
Yeah, I love being on a program with all of y'all, because y'all have such interesting things to say, and I kind of agree with both of you. And so yes, I, like Helen, as a queer person, am also disturbed by this. I think, on the other hand, we kind of all saw this coming. We probably predicted that this was going to be the outcome based on the makeup of this court, and the fact that there were a lot of people who voted in the previous, or time before last, presidential election specifically because they were wanting a particular outcome among justices who were appointed to the court. And one of the big issues, or, you know, a few of the issues that people were talking about, were things like making sure that they could roll back the rights of women and LGBTQ plus people and other marginalized groups that had been hard fought and hard won in recent years. And I think we're seeing that effort coming to fruition. And so I am bothered by that. Having said that, I do agree with the point that Ateo was making, that yes, it is okay for businesses to decide whether or not they want to provide a particular service. Businesses can refuse service to people. They can decide what kinds of products they want to make or not make. And I think that this was a really interesting case because, you know, to your point, Helen, it may have been very carefully selected or even curated because it allows the plaintiffs in this case to present an ostensibly reasonable argument in favor of, hey, we're not discriminating. We just want to make sure that we have it written into law that it's okay for artists to not produce things that they find unconscionable or things like that, and kind of make it seem like this is an issue that's about the rights of businesses rather than the rights of the people who are being discriminated against by those businesses. And so I think it was probably very carefully selected in order to kind of shoehorn this decision in so that businesses that maybe are not doing the same kind of thing can point to this and say, hey, we're allowed to discriminate too, because, you know, whatever, it violates my religious views. So I think it is kind of insidious in that sense, even though, yes, I agree with Teo's point that, you know, to some extent on its merits, I do see how that decision was arrived at. Something I thought was interesting was one of the comments made by Justice Gorsuch, who wrote for the conservative opinion, which was in favor of saying that discrimination is allowed, or that businesses can decide, you know, whether or not they want to make a product and not call that discrimination. He said that the First Amendment envisions the United States as a rich and complex place where all persons are free to think and speak as they wish, not as the government demands. And I think that statement is a really telling insight into the narrative that is being spun here, which is that people are claiming that the government is trying to force them to tolerate the existence of queer people, and this conflicts with their religious views, and the government's trying to make them sin, or whatever the case may be, and their religious views are above the law in this narrative. And, you know, I think the real issue that I have with that narrative is that there are a large group of people walking around in the United States who think that, as Helen said, queer people are icky, and that opinion that they hold is more important than anyone else's rights or legal protections. And I do find that very concerning. I don't know that that's necessarily going to be solved by another decision by the Supreme Court, I think that is something that maybe we can vote with our dollars and do a better job of checking in on our queer friends and our friends who are members of other marginalized groups, and paying attention to what's happening to people these days and recognizing their experience, and not putting up with people being bigots if it's a situation where we're present and we can say something or do something about it. So it definitely makes me want to work on being a good ally whenever I can, and hopefully we can as individuals do our best to fix this, because the court surely didn't. Over to you, Kelley.
You were mentioning that Gorsuch quote, and it specifically said think and speak as they want, as they wish. But this is more than thinking and speaking. This is actually taking an action. And I don't think we have the right to do that against some people and not others. So, but however, I am not sure that, and I only had a little bit of time today to prepare for this, but I'm not sure that there is actually specifically federal protection for being gay. And that could be the root of the problem here. However, I was thinking that there should be, oh, I knew he was going to show up. Yes, artists can be bigots too. Yes.
Yes, we're all
well,
agreement.
They might be running afoul of the law. You're right. I was just talking about that. Can you get off and let me talk? Thank you.
It's okay. It'll be all right. It will be okay.
But if there isn't federal protection, I'm almost positive that Colorado does have a law. And I think that this would come, because there isn't a federal law, it would come under the 10th Amendment, right? And it should follow with the Colorado law. So I'm not even sure that this is legally a good ruling on the part of the SCOTUS, and it's not just something that they have on their agenda because they're a bunch of right-wing religious bigots. I hate to say it, but that's where we're at. So, Ateo, do you have something else you'd like to add?
Yeah, I just want to repeat that, yeah, maybe some artists have the right to say, oh, I don't want to work with these people. And I would recommend everybody, because when they do that, they have to say, yes, I don't want to work with these, and that and those people, in order, to stop people from wasting their time. So it could be a good idea that they mention it, so the rest of us can see that and say, yeah, I don't want to give my money to somebody who is discriminating freely other people. I think that would be a good step, something that they should do, so they don't waste their time having to say no to people, and we don't waste our time by just giving money to people who are terrible.
Yeah, and I can see that point, but I like this. This just reads icky to me, because this isn't her standing up for her right as an artist. This isn't her being like, oh, they forced me, they started being discriminatory against me and my beliefs. She lied, went to the Supreme Court and said, like, hey, I have religious freedom, and I think that businesses should be able to refuse service to things about there's other people that they can't control. Like, that's just gross, because you can refuse service. You can even make it an excuse. If it was a gay couple, and she could even say, like, I have too many commissions right now, and refer them to someone that would do the work. That could have happened too, but no, she had to make a big stink and go to the Supreme Court and look. And the whole thing about this too is that everybody knows her name now, and there's big money coming to her, and I guess, and other businesses are going to follow suit, and then it's going to be more than wedding cakes, wedding websites, it's going to be like, going to a butcher shop and not being able to buy meat because your butcher thinks that you're icky, and that type of stuff. Just, I don't like things like this. I do think that people should have individual freedoms, and you have the right to be a bigot. I do agree with that. It makes me sick. I don't like it, but people have the right to be a bigot. And I wish, instead of the Supreme Court ruling for this, I wish they had, just wondering, I was just wondering if they could maybe let the free market decide and give businesses like restrictions they could do or ideas, you know, instead of being like, no, we're going to side with the bigot, you know, and it just bothers me. Anything else you want to say, Cara?
Yeah, I don't want to hog up all the time, but I agree that this just feels very contrived. I understand the argument that's being made. I'm certainly not a legal scholar, so I'm not going to pretend to say I know whether or not it was ruled correctly, but I can see a reasonable argument being made here for why businesses should be allowed to make decisions about the services that they provide, but it feels icky, like you said, and why I have to question why someone was coming up with this scenario and spending all of this time and effort to make this so public and to take this to the Supreme Court to get a ruling that says you don't have to make a website for a gay couple. It just feels like they wanted to make a statement or perhaps to chip away at legal protections of an already very marginalized group. And I just can't imagine what good is supposed to have come of that other than this person is famous now. And I hope that what this actually does is ultimately limits the business opportunities for this particular business, and that overall people find this to be a despicable act. But I can't speak for everyone, but I can speak for myself. I won't be getting a website made there.
Yeah, it will limit their business. I think that's even any way you look at it. There's a whole market now that's going to be closed to her. And it would have been open to her before. And she isn't, well, she's doing a website business. So I guess she doesn't really have a geographical restriction on it. So, but you know, because of this, there are going to be people on the right who are going to go out of their way to specifically hire her to do this kind of thing. So. But anybody else? I mean, would anybody else like to add something to it right now? Helen, you look like you might have something else to say.
I'm just annoyed with these stories we keep doing about bigots getting a pass. like I'm so tired of it. Like, and then like the little stories that we do that, you know, that bring me a little bit of joy come with like this like dark underbelly that I can't 100% enjoy sometimes. And, you know, and I'm always cautious because I'm like, we took a step forward. Oh no, there's going to be someone that's going to want to come and smack it down. And just, God, I'm feeling a little aggravated. And I really thought, you know, we were heading towards a better future for ourselves and our children, and I'm not digging it. You know, so I'm just having a lot of feelings about this. I'm having feelings, and
those feelings are valid.
Thank you.
Do you want?
Yeah.
One of the things the article that we posted talks about is a slippery slope. And do any of you think that this might be a slippery slope like that we might have to worry about? Maybe people of color having this happen to them in the future? Ateo?
Yeah, I'm just afraid, and it's creepy that in a time where most of us are trying to fight for equality and all of that, people are trying to fight for their right to be bigots, to be disgusting, to be immoral, and they want those rights to be protected. So once again, the USA is scary, guys. Very scary. More and more every day.
Cara, do you have an opinion on that?
Yeah, I tend to agree. I've been agreeing with y'all a lot. Y'all are smart people on here. No, I do think that this does chip away at protections for members of marginalized groups. I think that's pretty undeniable that this does at least, you know, put a chink in those protections that are there. And so, yes, I am concerned about that. I think that the current target of the conservatives who are behind a lot of these cases is, by and large, the LGBTQ plus community at this time. And that's probably who's mainly going to be targeted by these kinds of cases. But that's not to say that the target won't shift to another group at any given moment. We have certainly seen that happen before in the country. So I don't want to say no one is safe, but yes, this chips away at those protections. But I have a little bit of an optimistic view about the younger people in this country. I think that in the US, sorry, you could be watching from anywhere in the world. But I feel like the younger generation is less tolerant of bigotry. And I am hopeful that we're going to be seeing less of this as time goes on, and that the laws will stabilize and sort themselves out to become more aligned with our values as a society. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I'm hopeful of the same thing. I really am. And with that, hey, you know what? Check out our merch store, ACA or tiny.cc/ACA merch. And if you'd like to hear more of the nonprofits, you can get it right here.